You didn't set an alarm, but you're awake anyway. And the first thing your brain goes to, before anything else, is the number. $843. You've done this math so many times it lives somewhere in your chest now. Rent is the first. The car note is the 14th. The credit card minimum is somewhere between those two dates, and forgetting the exact day costs you $35 in late fees every single time. This isn't panic. You're past panic. This is just Tuesday. And right now, somewhere in the same city, someone else is asleep. Their money hasn't stopped moving. Same species, completely different planet. Tonight, we're taking the full journey. From $0, where money feels like weather, something that just happens to you, all the way to $100 million, where money becomes something you design. I've sat at the bottom of this, made the wrong calls, learned what things actually cost, not just in dollars. And what I need you to understand before we go a single level deeper is this. The money changes at every level, but something else changes faster. And most people never see it coming. Level 1, $0. At this level, money isn't a topic you think about. It's a temperature you feel. Before coffee, before you check your messages, there's a number already running underneath everything. A quiet calculation that follows you to the grocery store, to the dinner you said you'd come to the streaming plan you're sharing with someone you barely talk to anymore, because canceling feels like going backward. Every choice has math attached to it. Part of you already knows this isn't about discipline. The margins are genuinely thin, and the people telling you to just stop spending have never had to choose between the electric bill and the copay. And then the other voice says, maybe you're just not trying hard enough. Maybe if you just made better decisions. And that voice sounds like yours. That's the cruel part. It sounds exactly like yours. Here's the truth at 0. Your relationship with money is entirely emotional. And emotional decisions made under scarcity almost always compound in the wrong direction. The way out isn't a budget app. It isn't a motivation video. It's your first margin. Even $200 that doesn't have somewhere to go before it arrives. That's the beginning, not the finish line, the first breath. Level 2, $10,000. You don't celebrate when you hit this. You just keep checking. Not from anxiety this time, from disbelief. $10,000. You've never seen that number attached to your name before. It doesn't feel real for the first 2 weeks. You half expect the bank to correct some kind of error. And then something subtle happens. You stop doing the mental math at the grocery store. Not because you're wealthy, because you have a cushion. And the cushion changes how your entire nervous system moves through the day. This is the first real shift. Not the number, the silence. When the low hum of financial anxiety goes quiet for the first time, even briefly, you realize how much mental bandwidth it was consuming every single day. Like a program running in the background, slowing down every other thought you tried to have. $10,000 is not freedom, but it is the first clear thought you've had in years. Level 3, $50,000 net worth. You did everything right. Contributing to the 401k, emergency fund fully funded, lifestyle inflation mostly avoided. You make $62,000 a year. You have $50,000 in net worth spread across savings, retirement, and a car that's almost paid off. By every metric, you're winning. And then one night, you open a calculator. Run the numbers honestly, all the way out to 65. And the number that appears at the end is fine. Not free, not extraordinary. Fine. Part of you already knows that fine was never the dream. You didn't spend your 20s grinding toward fine. This is the most dangerous place in personal finance. Not because you're failing, but because you're doing everything correctly. And everything correctly might not be enough. The competence plateau feels like safety. It has the shape of safety. But safety and progress are two completely different things. And the gravity of the status quo is enormous when you're comfortable enough to stop feeling the urgency. The question that breaks this plateau isn't how do I save more? It's what else can I build? Level 4, $150,000 net worth. You started something small. You didn't even call it a business at first. Just a thing you did on evenings and weekends using a skill you already had, packaged differently. Sold to someone who needed it. First month, $400. You almost stopped. Fourth month, $1,800. You didn't tell anyone at work. You reinvested everything back in for over a year. Same lunches, nothing upgraded, nothing flashy. Your net worth crosses $100,000, then $150,000, and you feel the gap. Not between you and rich people, between you and where salary alone would have taken you. The gap has a real number. And that number is why people with 2 income streams describe time differently than people with 1. And then the other voice says, "This is so much work for money you don't even need right now." But that voice doesn't understand what you're actually building. You're not building for right now. You're building for the version of you 3 years from now, the one who has options. And options are worth more than comfort every single time. Level 5, $400,000 net worth. Something shifted around $300,000 that you didn't expect. Your money started having opinions. You'd look at an opportunity and the answer would arrive before you finished asking the question. That rental doesn't cash flow at that price. That pitch has a liquidity problem the founder doesn't see yet. The boring index fund will outperform the exciting one, again. You didn't take a certification. You didn't pay a consultant. You just spent enough time close to money that money started teaching you its own language. At $400,000, you're not wealthy yet, but you're building something that wealthy people recognize immediately. You understand what an asset actually is, not theoretically, but through the experience of owning one. Something that earns while you're asleep. Something that grows without you doing anything additional. And you've started protecting your time the same way you protect your capital. You say no to things that don't compound, not out of arrogance, out of clarity. Level 6, $1 million. You thought you'd feel different. You'd imagine this moment in some version of your mind for years. And when it finally showed up, on a completely ordinary Wednesday morning, it was quieter than expected. There is a real satisfaction, earned, true. You let yourself feel it for a moment. Then, almost immediately, clarity. $1 million at 4% returns is $40,000 a year. That's not freedom. That's a starting point. Part of you already knew this. The million was never the destination. It was proof. Proof that you could build, hold, and compound. Proof of concept. Not proof you were done. The identity shift at $1 million isn't about arrival. It's about realizing the question was never how much do I need. The question was always, what am I actually building toward? That question gets louder here, not quieter. And the people who go further are the ones who answer it honestly. Level 7, $3 million. At $3 million, time changes. Not the hours, you still have 24. But what those hours cost you, or no longer cost you, completely rewrites the experience of being alive. You take a trip, 3 weeks. You're unreachable for 5 of those days. On purpose. People on the outside think the trip is the reward, the vacation, the destination, the photos. It's not the trip. It's the 5 days. The ability to be fully present, fully unreachable, without consequence. That's what was never available before. Not at $50,000, not at $300,000, not even at $1 million. Your thinking shifts here too. You stop optimizing for income. You start optimizing for freedom of attention. Because the capital is largely positioned, the systems are largely built. The scarcest resource now is where you put your focus. And for the first time in your adult life, you actually get to choose. Level 8, $10 million. The rooms get smaller as the numbers get larger, and the conversations in small rooms sound different from everything outside them. Not louder, actually quieter, more precise. The people here aren't trying to impress, they're trying to understand what's mispriced, what the timing means, what the second order effect is on something that hasn't happened yet. And then the other voice says, does this level change who you are as a person? Here's what I'll tell you honestly about $10 million. The money didn't change you. It revealed you. Every value you carried at $10,000, how you treated people who couldn't do anything for you, whether you kept your word when it cost you something, whether you stayed honest when dishonesty would have been easier, those things get amplified at $10 million, not replaced. The version of you that arrives here is just a louder version of who you were already becoming, which means the work on yourself was never separate from the work on the money. It was always the same work. Level 9, $40 million. At $40 million, the isolation isn't loneliness, it's altitude. The coordinates of your daily decisions have moved so far from where most conversations happen that the gap isn't something you can bridge at dinner. Not because you're superior, because the context is genuinely untranslatable. The topics that occupy your attention, fund structure, capital allocation, positioning for shifts that haven't happened yet, they don't fit in casual conversation. Not because they're secret, because they're simply elsewhere. You give more than you ever have. Not for status, not for reputation, because at this level, money has stopped measuring anything meaningful about who you are. And generosity, real, direct, personal, is one of the few things that still feels entirely human, still feels like a choice. Your wealth runs on systems now, trusted frameworks, trusted people. You could step away for months. The machine would run. That's what the machine was always for, not to trap you inside it, to eventually run without you. Level 10, $100 million. At $100 million, you've entered a completely different relationship with time. You think in cycles now, not months, not years, decades. Demographic cycles, infrastructure cycles, credit cycles. You position for things that haven't happened yet and won't for years. You're reading weather that most people can't see on any forecast. You are 62. You haven't worked a conventional day in 11 years. You have not stopped working. And the decisions you make ripple outward in ways you'll never fully trace. You sit with that, not always comfortably. Somewhere in this city, right now, someone is lying awake at 2 a.m. doing the math, putting the name brand back on the shelf, thinking this is a story about a number. It never was. It was always a story about who you're becoming while you chase the number. Every level costs something, and every level gives something back. The question has never been whether you can reach the top. The question is whether you understand what you're building and why. Because the machine opens every morning. It doesn't check your balance. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It only cares whether you show up, patient, consistent, and refusing to stop. That's the work, and it starts tonight. If this video hit different, drop a comment with the level you're currently building from. I want to see where everyone is starting. And if you want the actual frameworks behind each of these shifts, join the Telegram community. The link is in the description.